Welcome to the Channel Surfers, the show that helps channel executives and channel managers do their jobs better and, be a better person at your job. So I am John McCabe. I'm the co-host, and I'm joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Jeff Lennon. How you doing, Jeff?
John, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. In fact, I'm always trying to be a better person. Let's just
I
be
am too. I always want to
right.
get better. Failure is not something I frown on. I take it as a learning lesson and I want to get better at it. So we always want to get better. That's why we did this show, right?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely, man. Well, look, man, it's good to be back. We took a little spring break there, but
Yep.
the birds are chirping, the flowers are starting to bloom, baseball has started, and and I think our topic today is we had RSA, which is another coming of spring, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a passing of the seasons with RSA. But so today we're going to talk about from RSA to revenue, turning an event energy or that event energy into pipeline, right? And you mentioned, and I'm going to let you kind of riff on this, but you mentioned early in the show, like RSA is a passing of the seasons, right? How many times, it's just like the first thing in spring that you go to, and it's like the kickoff of the big, conferences. So we're going to talk about that today.
Awesome, man. Well, look, I mean, it's first of all, I think it's kind of back, and in some respects, it's probably even bigger, maybe even a little bit better than it has been. Post the COVID thing. I don't want to say the word anymore, but post that, it's people. Look, we've talked about this. You can do a lot from your desk. You can do a lot with technology, but where the tire hits the pavement, to use that old analogy, you've got people have to be in front of people, and that's where the relationships are really built. So I think what's interesting with RSA right now, and I've talked to a handful of people, almost two handfuls, but people come back. You come back from RSA one of two ways. A lot of people come back energized, right? The posting on LinkedIn. By the way, some of the different events and everything. I think it's great.
The parties, the booth pictures. Yeah, I get it.
But the challenge is, within 4 to 5 days, it starts to fade, right? And you got to ask yourself, is there any activity? Is there any motion? Did we get any? You and I talk about this all the time. Are we getting any pipeline? Did we get any leads? There's a lot. I've heard this from, like I said, a bunch of people. Like, we had great conversations. Oh, we talked about this. We talked about that. But just trying to figure out, like, where does that kind of hit. So for today's episode, what I wanted to kind of dig in, I really want to get your perspective too, is, obviously it's the post RSA feeling. I was talking to a guy that we had on the show, and there's a bit of a burnout after the show, because you're running, you are running, and you've got meetings. I mean, one person told me they had in that span close to 30 meetings. That's a lot. I don't know how you can go deep, but you're definitely touching a lot of conversations
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, for what I found interesting, because I also kind of took a step back, which we can dig into, which is, looking at what was coming out of it and the messaging, right? How did RSA change this year over previous years? Because the agentic AI conversation and how people are using AI was a hot topic, without a doubt, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll just kind of throw that out there. But I think, for our audience, the channel managers, partner managers, alliance people, what are you doing post RSA? What was the takeaway? Because obviously AI dominated the conversation, it dominated the show.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't want that energy to turn into a shelf product, right? Or not be able to actually execute on what happened. So
I look at RSA, like this year seems so much more customer attendance and more vendor attendance. And 2 years ago I was at RSA, and it seemed like nobody was going. It just seemed like it wasn't. It almost seemed like it was kind of going down in its interest levels. But I think it's come up again. And I think one of the great things about RSA is like just the ability to connect and network over those couple days. You walk your ass off in for meetings. If you don't have a booth and you're just going to like walk the floor and take meetings, you're going to do a lot of walking. But I think I love the sandbox innovation award for the hot startups. I think the startups that are in the top 10 in that event go on to great riches in their company life cycle. And I love that. And I work for one of the companies that won it way back when, Exonius. But it's just an amazing event now. And I think there's so much more interest in it. And there are people that are going and taking advantage of it. Like, but what are you doing afterwards? Like, we've talked about events before in the show. What are you doing to make all those conversations come back home and follow up on them? Because we actually have a few conversations going with our current client around some alliance and some partnership opportunities. But if you're sitting there and you went to RSA and you think, oh, I just went there and had the conversations and nothing else should happen, then you probably need to re-examine what you're doing. Just to be very honest.
Yeah,
So
100%, man, 100%. It's and I don't know. Do people still use business cards? But you kind of come out of RSA, right? You got a pocket full of cards, 150, 200 cards, right? You've got these new, 35, 50 LinkedIn connections kind of going on, and you've got a bunch of follow-up threads that are happening with VPs here. Like, to your point, like all these different things are happening, and there's a lot of. And there's a great quote that I've heard you use from John Wooden, right? There's a lot of activity that's going on post, at the end or even during, the RSA conference. But really, to your point, like the next 30 days are probably the most critical piece, because you've got to sift through what was a meaningful conversation. One of my favorite quotes from sales over the years is, don't have happy years. People out there, oh, you guys do XYZ? That's what we need. Oh my God. Only to find out, like, well, yeah, but do you do the other, 3-4 important things that they really need from a criticality perspective to actually help them solve their problem, whatever. Like, but to your point, there's the use case outcomes. Like, here's the problems we're solving for your customers. And by the way, did you identify potential gaps, right, from a partner alliance perspective or from a go-to-market perspective, right? Because there's all this stuff that's going to come out of it. But I think, again, to your point, it's where's the follow up, where's the execution, so that we can actually do some measurable ROI, so to speak.
Yeah,
right.
That Wooden saying, which is my favorite, is never mistake activity for achievement. If you're just moving around, great, you had conversations, just moving around, and then do nothing, you haven't achieved anything. It's this. You've got to have that. Strength of follow through.
Yeah.
And all the great reps and all the great channel people that are out there, they understand that, right? And follow up is so critical. We have a sponsor, and that sponsor is Extreme. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Extreme, but they are a global payment system for partnerships. And if you're managing a global channel, slow payments kill partner motivation. Extreme can fix that. They provide the ultimate platform for channel partner payments, allowing you to instantly send global incentives, MDF, commissions, spiffs, and rebates. Your partners can choose from how they get paid: bank transfer, digital wallets, prepaid cards, and like over 140 currencies. So we're asking you, stop the mailing of spreadsheets. Start using and scaling with your channel with Extreme, right? And you can reach them at xtrm.com, Extreme. So we're very happy to have them on board as a partner and sponsor.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm excited, man, because it is sometimes can be an extreme challenge, to try to drive those programs. So super happy.
How many times have you tried to pay out spiffs and it's just, go to a credit card, buy those credit cards, or just do something, or if you go through payroll, it's a pain. Let Extreme do it for you. They know how to do it.
Amen.
I think maybe we could start to talk about, like, what is good follow-up? Is it, just pinging and reaching out to say, hi, we met and we'd like to do something, and then not ever reaching out again, or just being relentless? Because I think, I see RSA for someone like, for what we do in our fractional business, it's a way to find maybe new partners or maybe new clients. But a lot of the cybersecurity vendors that are at this event, I think they're looking for prospects, right?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Did you talk to a vendor that maybe has an alliance partnership that you can realize, and are you going to be able to prospect and work clients with them? That's what you got to explore, right? Or did you meet with your favorite partner,
I like that.
and realize you have a little work to do from sponsoring events, or getting your gross profit up, or just opportunity that you're not bringing or not working on, right? So there's so many learning lessons from an event like that. But what do you do? Like if you're sitting and
I
listening to
like
this, and
that.
you're a channel manager, and you've just kind of put in the time to walk around and meet people, but then come home and say, well, I'm going to wait for them to get to me. That's not the way to do it. And I hate to be like Grandpa John talking to, his grandkids about, you got to go and do what you got to do, um, but hey, it's sales.
Sorry, man. That was good. Was that Jed Clampett that you were just channeling right there?
Going to Clamp it. But there's so much you need to do. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
we've harped on this many episodes. Channel is sales. It's not just a show up to an event and have a beer and slap it back. It's your sales. So how do
Well,
you take that?
I was going to say no. So obviously, man, I'm back to my note taking thing. But you just when you said that, I was like, there's really, I was going to say three kind of takeaways, but there's really four. So the four major fails that I see are: number one, as I said, look, you might get 150, 200 cards, you've got 50 new contacts on LinkedIn, whatever. But you got to figure out, how do you organize and segment that, who you're talking to and what that conversation needs to be, right? So
Right.
you can't you can't just, and this is where I think there is another fail on top of that one is, you do something, next thing you know, you're just inundated. Like, you've got some BDR now that it's an AI BDR where they're just banging away on you like, hey, you came to the booth, blah, blah. So I think that could be a challenge. But I think the first is, you got to figure out how to segment your conversations, which is going to impact your follow-up. And to do that, you got to segment them. Then you got to prioritize them based on what the conversation context was, and based on what you think about where you can take the next things. And sometimes, it's a bet. The other is what you just talked about, the timeline. Not having any type of timeline or perspective with the follow-up, right? It's that whole ABC thing, right? Just not always be closing, but always be confirming the next conversation, right?
Time kills all deals, right? That's like
And
another good one.
having kind of, here's the thing, you got to balance that sense of urgency and prioritization
Mm-hmm.
while also being kind of, respectful. And then the other is, where you just kind of hit it on with one of our clients, it's that partner alignment. What is that partner alignment? Is it the, somebody's looking to help you co-sell? Are you looking to fill a gap within their go-to-market? Is it in a, potential alliance, maybe OEM white labeling thing? Like, because people will talk about a lot of things, but it comes back to segment, prioritize, driving your timeline to make sure you're effectively communicating, and then the alignment. The timeline one is tough though, because I've witnessed it. A lot of people come back and they take the next week off because they got to recoup, because they went in hard, man. They went into RSA hard. They really, they got there on Sunday and were nonstop for the week, and they just need, they need a couple of days to kind of, recoup.
Mm. Something kind of a little bit of a side conversation or side topic here is, if your company isn't big enough to have a booth, and those booths are super expensive,
Yeah.
You shouldn't let that be, a deterrent. Going and buying a badge for, I don't know, a couple $100 or whatever it is, and walking the floor and talking to people is a great way to do it. I've seen companies rent, office space or a suite very close, like at the Ritz, or some of those really centralized hotels, and they have their executives there, and you could set up meetings there. I think that's a very effective way to do it. You don't have to have a booth. I think the booth is a branding exercise, and it might draw some prospects. I'm guaranteed it's going to draw some prospects, but if you're really serious about getting most value out of an RSA, think about renting a suite or a meeting space close by to have meetings, and just do as much networking as you possibly can, because I find that has been more effective with some of the companies that I've been working for, we haven't had a booth. We've done the meeting space, and it's worked out great. And I think RSA requires some sort of commitment to do something or rent space in their, conference hall. But you've got the ability to do that. You're
Yeah.
still maximizing your dollars.
Well, and one of the things, and I can't really confirm this. I just know from conversations in the past, RSA got like really kind of, they cracked down a lot of that from my recollection, where
Yeah.
you needed to be some type of vendor status to have
Mhm.
any type of conference rooms at any of the
Mhm.
hotels that were within specific walking distance. But, I'm not here to throw shade at, the compliance aspects of RSA's vendor event thing. But,
Mhm.
so I think it's great if you can do that. I know, and we may have talked about this on a previous show. And I almost don't want to give away the secret, but because I don't even know if you can do it anymore. But we had, I think I may have shared this. We had, there was a restaurant
Mhm.
around that was like maybe 2 blocks or so, 3 blocks from the Moscone. And anyway, long story short, basically went in, and that, because we did it once in a lobby, but then there was another one where, and it technically wasn't me, it was indirectly, I was working with somebody, but they
Mhm.
basically got like a corner booth at the restaurant and just proceeded to tip. It was, and people would show up, they would do like, coffee breakfast thing, and then go
Mhm.
use the bathroom, come back, and then boom, the next group would come in, they're doing coffee pre-lunch, and then boom, and
It's a
I
great
don't,
idea.
I don't know if they were still doing it, but, and anyway, it was super super cool and flexible, but I don't know if you can still do that. Again,
Mm.
I don't know if the restaurant frowns on it, but again, to your point, I think it's, there's people are trying to get creative without dumping a ton of money into it. I do know that the innovative section, because it's technically, if you've never been, it's crazy. I mean, it is a world unto its own. You have the main hall, then you got the side
Mhm.
hall, then you got the event, you've got this
Yeah.
innovation
Yeah.
hall. It is a bit overwhelming for technology. That's why when I say you walk out of there with 150 200 contacts and cards and LinkedIn, like it can happen. And if you have a process, if you
Mhm.
have a framework when you're going, like the whole planning, we're talking post event right now, but if you have a plan when you're going in there and you've done your homework and you've got meetings set up, you will have other meetings pop in. You know this, and it's like, that's why having a booth works out great. Hey, just, we're trying to meet. I We don't have a room, but you know what? Just pop by the booth, or hey, I'm at XYZ
Hey,
lobby.
there's a coffee shop around the corner. Let's go meet there. In fact,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did that with our clients to meet with some partners. Yeah, I mean, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to plan for RSA like 2 weeks before, a week before. It's just not, that just doesn't work. You want to start planning, especially if you want to have some sort of presence in like a suite or even that restaurant idea. You got to plan like 6 to 8 months out, maybe even more, because
Absolutely.
it's becoming a much more popular event. You've got to be able to, you know, do what you need to do, have those meetings, make the most of it. You can't just say the week before, I want to meet with some people. Who should I meet with? And you know what I love? I love seeing like LinkedIn posts the week before, a couple weeks before, like, hey, I'm going to RSA. Let's meet. Just click here, set up a meeting. I wonder how effective that is. I don't think I've ever had success doing that, because people
Yeah,
just read it and move on. They don't really think about it.
I'll play the optimist for a second. I mean, I'm hoping that that's somebody who's just like, hey, they've already got their 8, 10, 12 meetings set, and they're just kind of like, hey, you know what? I'm going, because I know in the past, previous, like I said, previous life, to be able to go to those things as a IC, an individual
Mhm.
contributor, like you had to get X amount of meetings set up to even be able to go. That was a thing. I don't know if they still do that, but that was always a thing. Why? Because
Probably.
you,
It's a
right?
cost. Yeah.
Exactly, the cost, but also, you want to make sure that you're having meaningful conversations with the right people, blah, blah, blah. So I agree with you, but I also think that sometimes I know when I was going, I would throw that out there just as, hey, I'm going to be there. If you didn't know, I am going to be there. Let's meet. And just to see if you can get an extra couple, contacts. Or I've even gotten, through by doing that, I've actually had a couple other vendors like ended up getting invited to their thing. So you go to some of those events, which, are great. You're going to actually go and be able to bump elbows with other people. Right. And again, it's coming back to the contacts. But what I want, where I kind of pivot is, look, so the event has happened. We've talked about this on previous episodes. This is more of in my opinion, like that post event, that what are you doing? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things when I was looking it up, I mean, it's roughly 45,000 people. I mean, it was a pretty decent event,
Yeah.
but the theme was kind of the power of community, right? And the fact that the theme was this power of the community comes back to, we're all in this together. I also think that stresses the fact that the relationship capital is very high. And this is where you need to lean in and capitalize on it. I use that term all the time, lean in, but if it was truly this power of community theme that was going on, and agentic was being pushed out and all these different things to get better, faster, more efficient, blah, blah, the relationship capital that you have, this is where you got to capitalize. So getting back to what I was talking about the 3 fails, simple sales tactics are, divide and conquer, right? Take your leads, divide them into your hot, your warm, and your cool or cold. I don't want to say they're cold. We'll call them cool, right? Yep. Because it's not, you met somebody, you're just not sure if it's going to pan out, but making sure that you get through your 4, kind of make sure you don't do the 4 fails, segment, prioritize, focus on a timely follow-up and execution, and then also identify the alignment, but dividing them into your hot, warm, and cool, so that you, another level of, I'll say, prioritization, John, right? To make sure that you execute. I mean, how would you approach that? Like if with that kind of concept or framework?
I love that way of thinking, because you have a lot of conversations when you're there. Are they all hot prospects? No. You've got to figure out what that hot prospect is, and that's where you focus. The mid or the warm prospect, yes. The ones that really you're like, I just don't know. Again, I'm talking partnerships. Like it might be like you're an endpoint technology, and someone else is a data security company. And is there a match? I don't know, maybe. But the ones that are very hot, that's where your focus should be. And you should take that approach, that you don't sit and wait on them. Get going Monday morning, Tuesday morning, whatever you think is the best approach. I think Tuesdays are always like a good prospecting morning, because everybody's kind of like inundated on Monday with meetings and everything. So, but you got to do the focus on that. And I would say, on your way back from RSA, if you live in the East Coast, you've got a nice 3.5 hour plus flight if you're not doing a red eye, and you could organize your leads in that way, and organize how you go about your approach when you get home, right?
Yeah.
There's so many tools now that you could use, like Claude or Perplexity, or there's so many like to-do lists and things like that you could utilize online that can help you and help make your prospecting organized, relevant, and important, and yielding results. So I'm with you. I mean, I think there is a hot, a warm, and a cold aspect of the conversations you have. You can't waste time on the cold that are going to get you nowhere. You waste time on, or don't waste time, but focus time on those hot and warm leads.
Absolutely.
You never know. I mean, look, I have had conversations at RSA that have led to good partnerships and opportunity, right? But it's because we focused on what was like the most hot and important. So
yeah, dude, 100%, 100% agree. I mean, and to your point, there's, to kind of simplify it, right? Because hopefully we're imparting not just, hey, these are some ideas. It's kind of a philosophies, frameworks of things to leverage or take action on to help you sort through that, to be better, right? To do this post-event kind of follow-up. And to your point, I think, there's, you just got to ask a simple question, right? As you're going through your contacts, and it's almost like a, I'm going to mess up her name, person that does the whole feng shui or reorganization, or no, maybe it's the other one. Anyway, Marie Kondo, it's like, hey, you basically hold something, you're like, is this important or not? Boom, and you throw it. But you want to ask the question, what did we talk about? And you just want to, like, if I'm looking at cards or contacts, it's like, okay, what did we talk about? And I may have notes, but if I can't recall it right away, I need to push it aside and then go to the next one. And it sounds really weird, and maybe, it's not fair, but because hopefully if I'm on my game and I'm doing the right things and I did take notes, or I was involved and engaged, I'm going to go, ooh, we talked about XYZ. You know what? That's boom. And most people can do that, in my opinion. So you're going to take your leads, and it's suddenly going to break into this, like I said, hot, warm, cool. And you're going to have probably 15-20% are going to be hot. And then you're going to have I'm going to say 30 to maybe 50% in the warm, because most people don't they don't know how to, they can't discern between what was a good conversation with mutual interest and what was just, hey, we had it, we talked, it was light interaction. And but figuring that out and having your own kind of criteria is going to help you to sort that. So that, because to me, the cool should be, I hate to say it, it's probably going to be closer to 50%, 45-50% of right?
Even. Yeah.
Now, are going to be cool. You're going to probably have maybe 30%, 25-30% are sitting here, and you're going to have 15-20 F best, maybe even 10% that are hot. Yeah. Right. So
what about like you're a big 30, 60, 90-day plan guy. What do you do after you collect those leads and you start approaching them? What's like a 30, 60, 90-day action plan that you would put in place?
So, well, the first thing I do is I go into a 12-step program to recover.
Recover from RSA?
It's, well, yeah, no, but it's, anyway, that was probably not a good joke. But anyway, bringing it back, let's be serious. So for me, I've tried to utilize, I am a big 30, 60, 90. Actually, I've gotten in more to a 30, 60, 90, 120, because just the time it takes to do things. But I think within that mid frame, that 60-day window, several things need to happen, right? Because you've got that first 48 hours after meeting somebody to make sure that you've connected with them. So that should be happening in real time. But over the next 60 days, you want to go through, like I said, within the first week, you're sorting your contacts, you're making sure you've prioritized, you've done your segmentation, and you're reaching out to who are considered to be kind of the hot prospects. And then the next step would be, as you're following up with them, you need to work in a parallel path to start also connecting with the warm contacts and doing a follow-up. And again, and I have to say it, because if I don't, then people don't realize it, but this is not about doing a pitch. I had an opportunity to kind of go through some emails with another person, not too recently, but just from an event similar to RSA. And if you're going to follow up with a commercial, they're going to change the channel. It's like, I mean, people are just going to tune you out. So
be a problem solver.
Well, but you're looking to connect. You're looking to kind of follow up and connect and make sure that there is a connection, and then set the stage to have that conversation about what you're doing. Because first of all, what are you pitching? And if it's a customer, even if it is a customer or a partner, you're not trying to get them to buy something. You're trying to establish who they are, where they are, what they're dealing with, and do you even have an opportunity to help them? Because you don't even know, like you think, so that's the other thing. And then again, within the first 2 weeks, you're kind of doing your cadence is kind of kicked in and all that, and then you're getting into your touch points, and the cools, the warm and the cools, they're kind of, they still need to be connected with and followed up, because you never know, because maybe the timing wasn't right, or there wasn't the quick realization of, oh, you do XYZ. We need X and Y. Like, we need that. Like, so just kind of going through and making sure that you're doing that. And it's tough because we're all inundated. I mean, you do the math, you've got, 44,000, 45,000 people. You had a couple thousand vendors. The follow-ups are going to be off the hook. So everybody's being inundated. So finding a way to make sure that you had a real connection, that you can have that next conversation, and then figure out, who's going into immediate kind of connectivity, follow up, and actions, which are your hot, but you're warm and you're cool. They're going to go into, I hate to say it, that kind of long term nurture conversation to hopefully turn into something at some point. And then let's not leave out our what we do, what you and I do, right? The partner plays, right? And the whole alignment, and how do we get involved? Are we stressing? Did we do our co-marketing while we were there with our partners? Are we at the next step, which is the co-sell? Like, where are we in the loop with that partner, and is it progressing, right? So that's kind of
yeah. Let's pivot, and we're kind of running up against the top of the show, bottom of the show. What does good look like? So let's like wrap it up. Like, what does good look like from going to RSA? And I look at it like, okay, you've had 50 conversations. You figure like maybe 5 to 10 of those conversations are really qualified, and then you go after them, right? And then good is really like getting the second meeting, and if you're a partner alliance, doing demos for each other, see where you fit. What does good look like for you?
Well, there's good to great, right? Good book, by the way, if you haven't read it. But good is establishing a metric for yourself. You got to measure how many of the contacts that you did meet that you're able to follow up with, and then you've established next steps. I'm thinking, it's, and depending on the number, just to kind of give the percentage, I'd probably say you got to be somewhere in that. For me to be good, it's got to be in that 10 to 12% range. Great would be, 20 plus 20%, connected follow-ups. And I know people are like, oh, that's really low. Well, I'm trying to be honest, right? Because you're looking at this immediate. Now, I'm not saying that somebody that you connected with, you're not going to follow up with, and you're not going to have, a conversation in 2 months, 3 months, whatever, because of that event. It's all about timing, and is the timing right for them? But I think, if you can turn 10 to 12% of your hot contacts into solid next steps that you're following up on, that it becomes real measurable, KPIs and metrics that you can point to. Hey, we went there, we did X, we met with this number of Y people. I'm doing output. And here's our output. And we have these conversations that are happening. Because even if let's just say it's 10 or 12% of them that you've connected with, I'm not saying they're going to turn into deals, within the next 90 days of the event, or even the next 180 days of the event. I shared this on a previous show, back in my day doing startups, I'm going back in the early 2000s. When I would do an event, one of my, actually, this looks good from an event, was if I could have a deal closed. If I could get a deal closed from that event, from somebody I met at that event before the next year, like, it makes that event going to again. And again, that's a super micro kind of way of looking at it. But I think 10 to 12% of your hot leads have turned into actionable follow-ups and meaningful conversations that are leaning towards solving real problems. How's that?
I totally agree. You're not going to an event like that to waste time. It costs money. I mean, geez, the hotel rooms are insanely expensive.
Well, and time is money, right? Your time is money. You're away from your family. You're doing so, yeah, but to your point, I mean, that's, would you add anything to that? Would be my question.
Maybe I would add that, if you're putting a lot of stock in an RSA, and you're spending some money to go there, because even just to go walk the floors isn't a cheap expenditure. If you're spending that much money and you're focused on RSA as a place to make your prospecting blossom for the year, you better really work hard on those conversations that were beneficial, those hot conversations. Work very hard. Don't be a pest, but be aggressive enough to get those next steps, right? I think if you win an opportunity, or if you gain a really solid partnership from an RSA, that can go a long, long way.
Oh, absolutely. Really, I'll add one thing on top of that, John, and that is, within 60 to 90 days of RSA, if you can point to actual pipeline creation,
Mm-hmm.
then you know it was a solid win from the event.
For sure. Totally agree with that. Totally. Well, I hope the listeners got a benefit from hearing about this, and they're doing all the right things. But we're here to like help you guys get through the muck and understand what to do and how to do it. And I think we covered a lot on RSA today. So
Yeah.
with that, we will sign off for this episode. If anyone wants to get in touch with us, we have a website, www.channelsurfers.com. You can actually fill out a form if you want to be a guest or contact us about a question. And we really openly ask that you do that. We'd love to hear from you guys. We also have a LinkedIn page, and every Tuesday when we release an episode, Jeff is the master of our LinkedIn social media, and he posts videos and episode information on Tuesdays. You can also get us on all the relevant podcast apps, so you can hear us there. But until the next episode, Jeff, thanks again for doing this. And let's also thank our sponsor, Extreme. I will put a link in the pod description that you can link on to go to see Extreme and get to know them a little bit. And certainly if somebody wants to reach out and have us connect you, we would be happy to do that.
Absolutely,
so,
man.
Until the next episode, appreciate it. And thanks again, Jeff.
Yeah, man. Thanks. This was great. And yeah, appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, guys. Take care.